Bahnsen Group founder and managing partner David Bahnsen is here. Sir, good to have you at the desk here. Let's talk about the SoftBank deal, and let's talk about it in the context of what Trump had to say today about investment, about taxes. Listen to what he had to say today.
That's why we're, having a 41-year record in optimism from small businesses and big businesses. And I'll keep my promise to pass historic tax cuts for families, workers, and businesses that create jobs in America. Any business that invests $1 billion or more in the United States will be eligible for fully expedited permits and approvals, including environmental approvals from the federal government.
So we got that $1 billion investment deal last week. This week, we're seeing a $100 billion investment from SoftBank, maybe 200 if Trump gets his way. What do you think about that?
Well, SoftBank was there in 2016 as well, saying something similar, and I hope they have better things to invest in this time than the WeWork deal didn't end so well. It's a very good sign, though, that any foreign capital would want to come in the country. It's a good sign for U.S. business investment, CapEx, et cetera. You need productivity, and you need productivity out of capital formation. President Trump has always intuitively understood this part, that capital markets are a good thing and that they indicate more activity. Now, some of this has to get through Congress. You can't just pass some of these tax treatments on your own.
Right.
And so there's a lot of work to be done through reconciliation, but I like where a lot of this is headed.
What was really striking to me as I'm watching this, and I don't think I've ever seen it before with an incoming administration, he's holding a press conference. He's not the sitting president. The sitting president, David, really is nowhere to be found. And he's holding court like he is president. And he's saying things like, Joe, don't sell the wall, because they've been selling off the materials that he had, allocated to continue building the wall. And he's asking him to kind of do things. But it's all kind of tongue in cheek because at the end of the day, nobody's home at Joe's house. Trump's running the show.
Yeah, I'm not even sure it's that tongue-in-cheek.
Right.
I think it's rather serious. Look, it speaks to a political dysfunction that, honestly, I'm kind of speechless about, and I'm not usually speechless, as you notice. I do think he's in absentia. That is President Biden. I think it's been going on for some time. I think everybody knows it. And at this point, having this kind of lame duck transitionary presidency, which is unique because of the Grover Cleveland factor, we haven't had a former president who's a future president other than, over 100 years ago. That's what's happening. And I don't think the American people mind it at all.
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do. I think you're totally right. And, I was really paying attention to what he was talking about with tariffs, because we're all kind of waiting and seeing how is he going to use the tariffs? Is it a policy? Is it a threat? Is he actually going to do it? Is it leverage? But we had on the show just last week the premier from Alberta, Canada, Danielle Smith. And it was so interesting to hear her comments, because she says in response to Trump's threat of tariffs, perhaps, she is deploying more units, more resources to the border. It seems like these are signs that people are really taking attention to what he's saying. And even today, he says tariffs will make our country richer. I think his threat of tariffs are already making our country stronger. Your take?
Yeah, tariffs definitely do not make our country richer, but it doesn't matter if he doesn't mean it. If he's just saying it for that very purpose you're talking about, which is negotiating. I just want to point out the Canadian issue was to solve a different domestic policy agenda: crime, drugs, border. It's not related to trade. And so that's what's, I think, encouraging for Wall Street, is so far he's using tariffs, the heavy-handed tariffs, on something not related to trying to decrease trade, protectionism. It's more related to, at least with Canada and Mexico, other domestic policy objectives. That's something a free trader like myself can get behind, because, again, there's nobody yet who knows that he's actually going to do it.
Right.
He's using it for negotiating, and so far so good. We're in early innings, and there will be more volatility.
So let me take that and kind of port it to this issue with the dock workers and the guys who run the facilities there. I look at the conversation you have with the dock workers. Now he's going to sit down with the guys who run the ports this week, I think, and they're going to hash this thing out. To me, putting a thumb on the scale for the workers is a little bit like trying to set the terms of the negotiation, but not necessarily to give them a sweetheart deal, just to get everybody wanting to talk about this, Dave. In other words, I'm looking at it as a negotiation, not as economic analysis. How do you view it?
Brian, I'm all for it until I'm proven wrong. He's the art of the deal guy. We all know that. He just intuitively loves deal making. Anyone who's spent a little time with him, you can just tell he likes doing deals. I have a big problem with giving any assent to this notion that technology is bad for anybody, that making things more efficient is bad for workers or the users of the products, which includes all of us. And by the way, it includes the workers, too. But if he is doing this as part of a process, you said put your finger on the scale for workers, going into it, and it works out, then I guess I don't have anything I can say, do I? But to the extent we get to a point where somebody buys the argument that technological efficiency is unfair to workers, there's no limiting principle there. We wouldn't have had an industrial revolution or a digital revolution. We can't tolerate that kind of economic foolhardiness. But I don't think he's really doing it. So we got to let this play out. In other words, I'm giving the president-elect benefit of the doubt.
Okay. I like that.
Thank you.
Now that you're doing it, let's talk about some of these CEOs, because they're coming to him on bended knee. Some of the ones that weren't always big supporters. So he met with Zuckerberg, and now he's saying he's going to have dinner with Jeff Bezos. And ultimately, he was down at the New York Stock Exchange last week, and you had all of these financial institutions sending their executives and bigwigs to support him. My feeling is they want to have a seat at the table and they want to have a conversation. They want to be part of this policy making that's going to be blended with technology. And then you've got his ideas about Bitcoin and strategic reserves and Bitcoin surging to 107,000 and AI. And I see these CEOs being smart and saying, let's get on his good side.
Well, let's separate the two things you brought up, because I'm 100% with you. You want the CEOs there. I would like to remind them they are fiduciaries to their shareholders. It would be totally reckless for them not to be there, not pursuing a seat at the table. Nobody's forcing anyone to pretend they agree with things they don't agree with. I have 100 things I've disagreed with President Trump over the years. I've met with him several times. I never pretend I don't disagree on things. Have some integrity. But in the meantime, go represent, get a seat at the table. You have something to offer. You're a successful executive in American business. So go act like it and be around the conversation. President Trump likes that. He likes the interaction. The strategic Bitcoin reserve thing is driving me crazy because it is literally the dumbest thing.
I had to blend them because I needed to hear from you.
It is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in 50 years of being a political junkie, because I started out of the womb. But the CEOs at the table, no, all for it.
One thing we know about David, you're always going to give us where you stand. But I think there's so many people around the world who are saying with Trump, you got to wait and see what happens.
Yes.
You can't ahead of time predict how this is going to play out. It's one of his features as a leader, I think.
Well, it's a feature and it could be a bug. Right now, it's a feature that is working well and we let it go. At some point, if something goes wrong with the strategy, I'll call it out.
You will?
But right now, we're moving on.
You'll call it out right at this desk.
Yes,
we know
I
you
will.
We're glad you're here today. David Bahnsen, good to see you, my
Thank you.
friend.